True Seekers. Welcome back. Zach here. It's January 16th, 2017, a Monday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Always celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day the first Monday after his birthday, which was yesterday, Sunday, January 15th. Every single Martin Luther King Jr. Day, since about the time I was 20 years old, I've made a post online about the death of Martin Luther King Jr. Years ago, before I knew about numerology and gematria, what I always thought was curious about the death of Martin Luther King Jr. is that on April 4th, 1967, exactly 1 year to the date of his death, he gave his most controversial speech. And if you came up in the public education system, you probably never heard about this speech. It's often whitewashed from the history books. Interestingly enough, this morning CNN wrote a big article about that speech from April 4th, 1967, and for as long as I've been alive and awake, I've never seen the mainstream media write about that speech before. But on April 4th, 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. gave the speech Beyond Vietnam, A Time to Break Silence. If you listen to my weekly radio show, when the show begins, there's some audio clips. One of the clips is from Martin Luther King Jr. talking about how silence is betrayal. That clip is from the April 4th, 1967 speech. If you go on YouTube and type in Martin Luther King Jr., A Time to Break Silence, the full speech will come up. It's about 50 minutes long. I recommend listening to it from start to finish. I think it's easily the best speech Martin Luther King Jr. ever gave. He talks about how the United States of America is a war empire. At the root of that war empire is where all the hatred comes from in this nation, and it's the reason for the racial division and everything else wrong. He talks about how we're a nation that spends its money on missiles and killing people instead of investing in our future. He gave that speech 1967. This April 4th, 2017 will be the 50-year anniversary of that speech. And not a thing has changed. And I'm afraid that in 2017, even more people are silent than they were in 1967 when he was speaking about how not enough people were speaking out. 50 years later, even less people speaking out. More people living, less people speaking out. So anyhow, Martin Luther King Jr. gave that speech. He lost a lot of close friends and allies. If you read about the history of that speech, a lot of his associates said, "Oh, Martin, don't give this speech. This isn't your mission. You're not here to speak against the government and their military operations. You're just trying to heal the divide in race." And Martin Luther King Jr. said to those people, "No, this is all part of the same picture. I have to call this out." In the speech, he says something along the lines of, how can he talk for any type of division and hatred in this country if he's not speaking out against the injustice of war and the needless murder? So anyway, check out that speech. Great speech. He would be assassinated a year to the day later. If you look up the newspaper headlines from April 5th, 1967, the front page of the news that day was all about Martin Luther King Jr.'s radical speech. Lyndon Johnson was the president. He came out and said Martin Luther King Jr. was no longer a friend of the White House. He would never be invited to have dinner with he or his wife again. All sorts of articles about how Martin Luther King Jr. lost his mind. He'd gone off his rocker. Martin Luther King Jr., for the last year of his life, was blacklisted from the media. Nobody heard about him, not until he was assassinated. Up until that point, he was a regular face in the news. What Martin was speaking about was making the news. For the final year of his life, you didn't hear about him. Not after that speech. The mainstream perception was that he had crossed the line. He had spoken out against the U.S. military, which keeps us all safe and free and protected. You know how the propaganda goes. So anyway, the final year of MLK's life, the year you didn't hear about. And Think about it. For all of us who grew up in the public school system, what do we know about Martin Luther King Jr.? They teach us again and again, I have a dream, and they keep it pretty much right there. They don't talk about all the other things he said. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, the 44th president, the first black president, Barack Hussein Obama, and more. This is going to be an information-packed post. This is about the true black history of America by the numbers. By the end of this video, you'll know why February is Black History Month and more. Has a lot to do with racism. So MLK, born January 15th, 1929, happens to be a date with 64 numerology. The word civil rights in gematria sums to 64. The Civil Rights Act in the year 1964. A lot of people don't know that a century earlier, 1864, at the end of the Civil War, there was the first legislation ever made for civil rights for black Americans. And then the Civil Rights Act in 1964, a century later. But Martin Luther King Jr., face of the Civil Rights Act, born on a fitting date, January 15th. The word leader in Jewish gematria is 115, kind of like 1/15, his birthday. Born in Atlanta on the 33rd parallel, dead in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968, a date we'll talk more about. Let's start right here. In case you've never seen any of my videos, I've talked about all of this information that's going to be in this video before in separate videos, but now I'm putting it all here in one for a Martin Luther King Jr. Day special. I talk about the language of gematria, the ancient language of coding numbers into words. When you see this language, when you know this language, history becomes a lot more clear. You see how history as we know it has been organized and created by the numbers, by a gang operating in high places known as Freemasonry. And Martin Luther King Jr. himself was a Prince Hall Freemason. Not sure about Malcolm X. Malcolm X connected to the Nation of Islam, which is connected to Freemasonry. We'll talk more about it. But anyway, the Freemasons at the top, the invisible architects of society, the keepers of knowledge, they are very much aware of this language of gematria, and throughout history, they have used it to code the history books as we know them. Keep in mind the names Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Neither of them are the birth names of these respective men. They're the names that were modified. Martin Luther King Jr. sums to 93. So does Malcolm X. These two men only met one time in history on the date March 26th, 1964, which was a date with 93 numerology. These two men only met one time in history on a date with 93 numerology, matching their names. We'll be talking about how significant 93 is to black history, connecting to Rosa Parks and so much more. But notice, 93, the reflection of 39, and both of these men assassinated at the age of 39. Both of their lives cut short at 39, and cut short by very similar numbers, which we'll get to. Using the alphabetic order, Martin Luther King Jr. sums to 228. Malcolm X would die 2 months and 28 days from his birthday. Martin Luther King Jr. equals 228. United States of America 228. Martin Luther King Jr., the only U.S.-born citizen to have a holiday named in his honor. Malcolm X, he died February 21st, 1965. His birthday that year would have been May 19th, 2 months and 28 days later. Death equals 228. Think about Black History Month. Ending on the Black History Month is February, the month that ends on the 28th day, 2/28, the 59th day of the year. We'll get to that. The fact that Black History Month ends on the 59th day of the year, the word kill in Jewish gematria equals 59. Negro equals 59, slave 59, blues 59, Rasta 59, Motown came out in 59. They say AIDS was discovered in 59 in Africa, in the Belgian Congo 59. Talk more about that number in a moment. February, which is Black History Month, the month that Malcolm X died in, he died February 21st. February is the only month with a 42 gematria. Think about the first black baseball player in white major league, Jackie Robinson. He wore 42. The slang term brothers equals 42. The most hateful word for black people sums to 42. And if you look at how it breaks down, N is the 14th letter. 1 plus 4 becomes 5. So N is worth 5. I is the 9th letter. So it begins with 5, 9. And then it ends with ER. E's the 5th letter. R's the 18th. 1 plus 8 becomes 9. The most hateful word for black people sums to 42. And it has two 59s coded in it. February, the only month that sums to 42, ending on the 59th day of the year. We'll talk about how Rosa Parks was 42 years old when she had her bus protest. The word bus has gematria 42. So does the word boy. Think about how boy used in a derogatory way to speak to black men. Fugitive Slave Act in history was established on February 4th, a date that can be written 4/2 in the month of February in the year 1793. A law about returning, escaped black citizens to their white owners. No coincidence that happened on February 4th, 1793. That's because this nation has always been run by Freemasons who have always abided by the same numerical code, creating history again and again by the same numbers. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., shining examples. Here's Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Again, date was 64 numerology. The name Barack Hussein Obama equals 64. Elected as the 44th president, 44 years after 64, the year of the Civil Rights Act. Here's the gematria Barack Hussein Obama, 64. If you do Barack Obama using the alphabetic order, his name sums to 68. Martin Luther King Jr. assassinated on 4/4/1968. Obama, the 44th president. When you write out 44 as a word, it sums to 144. When you write out April 4th, sums to 144. Malcolm X was assassinated on a date with 44 numerology. His assassin got 44 years in prison, plus a whole lot more. Notice the letter X, Malcolm X, X also represents 144. Just like when you write out 44, just like when you write out April 4th. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassin died in prison on a date with 144 numerology. We'll get to it. The numbers 44 and 144 all throughout history have been connected to assassinations. JFK died by the numbers 44 and 144. So did his brother, Bobby Kennedy. So did the first president to die in office. So did Abraham Lincoln. And so have many other leaders worldwide. Freemasonry is thousands of years old, stretches across the globe. Freemasons running the show worldwide by the numbers, murdering people by the numbers, having people fake their deaths by the numbers. And especially these ones, 44 and 144. The word killer is 144. The word time is 144, which is an important point. These are people being murdered throughout time by the numbers. Time is also very much naturally connected to 144. The square root of 144 is 12. 12 times 12, 144. 12 months in a year, 12 hours in the morning, 12 hours in the evening. Each day there's 1,440 minutes, 1440. Lose the zero from the end, you're right back to 144. The Fibonacci sequence. The 12th Fibonacci number happens to be 144. If you don't know your Fibonacci numbers, look it up. They say that's, God's natural mathematical spiral, the Fibonacci sequence. With regards to men dying by the number 44, the word kill, using the alphabetic order, sums to 44. Obama, the 44th president, ran on hope, hope 44. Obama ran on hope and change. The word change has gematria of 38. Martin Luther King Jr., who died in 68, died in Memphis, a location with 38 gematria. The assassin of Martin Luther King Jr., James Earl Ray, who said he never killed Martin Luther King Jr. A lot of people know that he was the patsy, blamed for it. Supposedly he was an escaped prison convict. Can you imagine being running from the law and then taking the time to go where, Martin Luther King Jr. is going to be and pull out the sniper rifle and assassinate him when you're already on the run from the law? They just chose him, likely, if he really even was a convict, they likely chose him because he was on the run, Frame it on him. If Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, no doubt he was killed by this nation's government. And during the time of the O.J. Simpson trial, Martin Luther King Jr.'s family had a ruling by a judge that said the government was involved in a conspiracy to kill Martin Luther King Jr. So that information's all out there. But anyway, look at this. James Earl Ray died on April 23rd, 1998. He died 30 years after Martin Luther King Jr., 30 years and 19 days. He died on a date with 144 numerology. The killer 144. You see? April 23rd is also the 113th day of the year. Mainstream equals 113. Dishonest 113. Scottish, as in Scottish Rite Freemasonry, equals 113. In the Talmud, which the Zionist Jews go by, it says in Bava Kama 113a that it's okay for somebody who's Jewish to lie to somebody who isn't. Think about who controls your media. James Earl Ray, his date of birth, March 10th, 1928. That's a date with 33 numerology. James Earl Ray, his initials, J-E-R, gematria of 33. 33, the number of Freemasonry, the number of false flags, the federal government. False flag equals 33, federal 33, order 33, masonry 33, secrecy 33, race war 33. All throughout history, 33 used to provoke people, to create racial division. Think about after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., the race riots, Detroit and elsewhere. They say Detroit never recovered from what happened in the wake of the announcement of the Martin Luther King Jr. death. A city that never recovered from those riots. That's the way we're told. Regarding him dying 30 years after Martin Luther King Jr., Saturn is the keeper of time to the occult. Saturn equals 93. The real keeper of time to this world is the sun, which science tells us is 93 million miles away. Saturn also has gematria of 21 and 30. This man died 30 years after Martin Luther King Jr., April 23rd, 1998. And again, Martin Luther King Jr. was killed in Memphis. Memphis has gematria both 38 and 47. 38 connecting to death, 47 connecting to time. Malcolm X died on the 52nd day of the year. Martin Luther King Jr. died in Tennessee, a land that has gematria of 52. Government 52, prophecy 52. Just so you know, down below this video, in the description, I will link all of these blog posts that we go over in case you want to share these with your friends later, read them over yourself. The last day of Martin Luther King Jr.'s life, he gave the speech, "I've been to the mountaintop." He gave that at the Church of God in Christ Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee. Look at the address of this building. 930 Mason Street, Freemasonry. He gave this speech on April 3rd, which is typically the 93rd day of the year. The phone number there, 947-9300, very interesting. Again, Martin Luther King Jr. 93, Malcolm X 93. They only met on one date in history, date with 93 numerology. Mason Temple, as it's called for short, has gematria of 133, just like the word government using the alphabetic order. With regards to a church, Christian church, Martin Luther King Jr., sacrifice. If you've never listened to Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, I've been to the mountaintop. He talks in that speech very clearly about how he might die soon. You know, he might not make it to the promised land. But he says he's already been to the mountaintop. Anyway, just notice, crucifix equals 93, the symbol for Jesus on the cross. You know, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., two men martyred. Doesn't it just seem like too much in light of the 93 coding than his last speech at 930 Mason Street on the 93rd day of the year? Here's the date that the only time Malcolm and Martin met. Malcolm X's only meeting with Martin Luther King Jr., March 26th, 1964. That is a date with 93 numerology. You know? Again, both men dead at age 39. So let's talk more about Malcolm X's death, the parallels. Malcolm X was assassinated February 21st, 1965 in New York City. His death blamed on the Nation of Islam. The date he died was a date with a life lesson number of 44. His assassin was named Thomas Hagen, who got 44 years in prison. Thomas Hagen equals 44. Again, the word kill equals 44. Malcolm X was shot in the Audubon Ballroom. The gematria 58 stands out because it was the Nation of Islam that killed him, brought him to his death. Nation of Islam equals 58, just like Freemasonry, just like secret society, just like Annuit Coeptus, the Masonic motto on the dollar bill. On top of that, Malcolm X was born May 19th, 1925, reportedly. This is a date with 68 numerology. 5 plus 19 is 24, plus 19, 43, plus 25, 68. Martin Luther King Jr. assassinated in 68. Barack Obama equals 68, the 44th president, 44 years after the Civil Rights Act. Barack Hussein Obama, not a real name, not the real name of the president. It is the actor agent name that is a tribute to history's past. You know, I thought in the time that I've been aware of this knowledge that we might very well see an assassination of Barack Obama because he has these numbers coded all over him that connect to Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr. I thought they very well might recreate history by tormenting the public by assassinating the first black president. And Obama's almost out of office. Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. His last hours on the job. If he makes it out of office, something to think about. He said he's staying in Washington, D.C. for the foreseeable future. They still could assassinate Obama to provoke the nation. He has all the numbers coded into him of these two black leaders from the past who were murdered that provoked the population. Very well still could happen. But anyway, date of birth, May 19th. That is the 139th day of the year, the day that leaves 226 days remaining. Freemasonry, using the alphabetic order, sums to 139, just like how it's coded into the location he died at. The number 226, the days left on May 19th, very interesting. If you write out 226, it sums to 93. If you write Malcolm X, it sums to 93. And remember, 226, 93, New York City. That's the date of the 93 World Trade Center bombing. February 26th, 93. 226 and 93 are often paired together in history. This is another Masonic specialty. The word planet equals 226 in Jewish gematria. using the alphabet, the word planet equals 68. That's something to think about, you know. A lot of this coding, it goes back to astrology. There's other layers. There's still things that I need to understand. But anyway, planet 226, and then as we talked about, Saturn equals 93. Saturn, the most important planet to the occult, the keeper of time. To the ancients, the most distant planet, the sixth planet. When you write out the word 6, it sums to 52. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., both dead in connection with 52. Again, X dead on the 52nd day of the year, King dead in Tennessee. But anyhow, you start to look at all of this. To me, what it says is these men, their identities, they were created. I'm not convinced that this is Malcolm X's real birthday. I'm not convinced that Martin Luther King Jr.'s real birthday is January 15th. It's very possible that it was all created by the numbers. Just like how the names match in numbers, the birthdays, also similar parallels. They mentioned that the theater he died in was on the 3900 block as well. 3940. You know? Dead at 3900 block. Martin Luther King Jr. at Mason Temple, 930. Isn't it all just way too much for coincidence? And we still have so much more to cover. So here's a more recent one. This past season of the NFL, the Super Bowl that was on February 7th, 2016, the black Carolina Panthers facing the white Denver Broncos. If you missed my work from last NFL season, early in the season I said why the Broncos would defeat the Panthers in the ongoing race war symbolism. I said why Von Miller, number 58, would be the MVP, and I said why there would be a Black Panther tribute. All of those things happened, and I called it all before the playoffs even happened, when it was still early in the regular season. The script was very easy to see for the NFL season last year. In case you're not aware, every professional sports season is scripted. There's no legit winners. You're watching sports theater, and oftentimes the sports theater is paying tribute to the events of the year. In recent years, there's been a lot of race war symbolism. Last year, perhaps the height of it, you know, the whole Dylan Stormroof shooting plus everything else. Anyway, notice last year, Beyonce, they had her and the dancers come out in the Black Panther Party looking gear. They also had Beyonce pay tribute to Michael Jackson, who in 1993 at the Super Bowl wore this with the X, 93. Beyonce Giselle Knowles equals 93. Think about Malcolm X 93, X. Anyhow, look at all this. Everything about this display last year was coded to the teeth. The women, Beyonce's dancers, dressed looking reminiscent of the Black Panther Party from the 60s. Here's what you needed to know. Last year, Cam Newton, the starting quarterback for the Black Panthers, who wear a Black Panther on the side of their helmet, last year he became the 58th quarterback to start in a Super Bowl, which was hosted by the 49ers, who are in the Bay Area. The Black Panther Party was established in 1966 in Oakland by Huey P. Newton. Cam Newton, the quarterback of the Black Panthers. Anyway, look, Oakland equals 58, Huey P. Newton 58, Freemasonry 58, Nation of Islam 58, Audubon Ballroom 58. Cam Newton, the 58th quarterback to start in a Super Bowl. Remember, 1 week before the Super Bowl last year, they had the TV show come out about the O.J. Simpson trial, and the way it began was with Cuba Gooding Jr. playing the part of O.J. Simpson, driving a white Bronco. A white Bronco versus the Black Panthers. If you missed the videos I put out on that and why they chose Cuba Gooding Jr. and what that had to do with his 1996 role of Jerry Maguire, Cuba Gooding playing a football player, O.J. Simpson was a football player, Go back and check it out. It's all scripted by the numbers. Cuba Gooding Jr. chosen for his birth and name gematria. It's just mind-blowing what the gang is doing by the numbers again and again throughout history. But anyway, this tribute came during the Super Bowl. All predicted. Justice for Mario Woods, the sign that they're holding. The way it's spelled, gematria of 93, just like Beyonce Giselle Knowles, who gave tribute to Michael Jackson's 1993 Super Bowl performance. There's even more to it, but just wanted to give you one more example of, the race programming with the same numbers on top of it. So here's Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks. We all learned about her in school, her protest on the bus. If you don't know black history as well, there were many people who protested on the bus before Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks gets the attention because she was at the right time for the building narrative that was going a decade strong until the Civil Rights Act. Look at this. Her birth name, Rosa Louise Macaulay Parks, name gematria of 93. How perfect. Born February 4th, 1913, dead October 24th, 2005. Notice that date she died. 10 plus 24 plus 05, that's 39. 39, the reflection of 93. You can also do 10 plus 24 plus 20 plus 05, which is 59. Kill, 59 in Jewish gematria. Negro, 59. Slave, 59. Blues, 59. If you write out the number 5 as a word, if you write out the number 9 as a word, those are the two single-digit numbers that both sum to 42. Earlier we were talking about the most hateful word for black people, how it has two 59s coded into it, and the word sums to 42. She was also born February 4th, a date that can be written 4/2, anniversary of the Fugitive Act, that gave white owners the right to reclaim their black property in 1793. But look at this. It was December 1st, 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama, where the remembered protest on the bus comes out of. She was born February of 1913, which means December of 55, she was 42 years old and some months. The word bus is 42. History by the numbers, the same repeating numbers. Here's another good one. The Tuskegee Airmen in World War II. The Tuskegee Airmen, look at what the word Tuskegee equals, 93. They were deployed on April 2nd. April 2nd. In the U.S., we write that date 4/2. Another way to communicate 42. April 2nd, the date they were deployed. Unreal. Here's the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793. Article 4, Section 2. The act was passed by the House of Representatives on February 4th, 1793. And truth seeker, to this day, 2017, when the Congress votes on anything, it's all done by the numbers. The votes, the yes and the no's, they're always synced up with whatever they're voting about. It's all ritual what goes on in this nation. This nation is owned and operated by Freemasons. You ever heard that George Carlin joke about how this nation has owners and we're all owned? This is who the owners are. And this is how the owners operate. And when you learn how they operate, you see how repetitive they are, doing the same thing again and again over centuries. I've been putting out this knowledge so that we can put an end to it. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, and I learned about Martin Luther King Jr. being assassinated a year to the day of his speech going against the military, that's all I needed to know. That's all I needed to know back then to see what was going on. Since then I've learned all this that I'm sharing with you. And over the years, it's blowing my own mind, but now I'm just used to it. I just know that this is how that gang operates, so it just makes me shrug my shoulders now. It makes me go, here they go again. Here they go again. But these people are very redundant, very repetitive. They couldn't be any more repetitive. Here's Rodney King. Look at his birthday. April 2nd. died June 17th, 2012. That's now the anniversary date of the Charleston church shooting hoax. He died at age 47. 47, special number to the gang. Bible study class equals 47. Christian equals 47. 3 years after his death, supposedly Dylan Stormroof went into the church, killed the black people who were in Bible study class. The name of that church in Gematria, the full name of it sums to 393. And they say Dylan Stormroof was born on April 3rd, the 93rd day of the year. The name Dylan Stormroof equals 74. White supremacist equals 74. Masonic 74. Special number, they say he was arrested on Interstate 74. There were the headlines after he was arrested about how he was hungry, so the police took him to Burger King before they took him to jail. Like that really happened. Burger King equals 58, like Freemasonry. Notice the name Rodney King equals 59. 59, 42, stamped on black people. 59 name, born on April 2nd. You see? It's all part of a sick joke, truth seeker. Again and again. Look at the most hateful word. How 5 9's coded into it twice. When I made this post, I was pointing out how they were recreating the Rodney King riots with the Freddie Gray story, the name Freddie 42. That came right after the Michael Brown killing in Ferguson, Missouri. Ferguson 42, Missouri 42. Rodney King was beaten on March 3rd, 3-3. Race war equals 33. Same numbers used again and again all throughout history. You know, I started this video channel. I had a blog for more than a year prior, but I started this video channel right after the Michael Brown shooting because I wanted people to know about race war by the numbers. I talked about how the name Michael equaled 33 like race war. When I made the video, they didn't have out the name of the police officer who had killed him, but I told everyone, I said, watch, when the name of the police officer comes out, when that officer's name comes out, his name's going to sum to 33, just like race war, just like police. And sure enough, they released his name as Darren Wilson. And look, I just want to show you this picture of Darren Wilson real quick. The supposed officer who killed Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, where CNN was there to help record the race riots that they contrived. Hold on, internet's just going a little slow. Here we go. I want you to see this picture of Darren Wilson, the shooter of Michael Brown. It should get pulled up right here. Here we go. Wait, I don't want it from there. Notice how he had the number 42. You saw that, but I want you to see what it says on the shirt. Where is the... Here we go. Darren Wilson, who killed Michael Brown, Ferguson 42, Missouri 42, number stamped on black people. His shirt also says blues. The word blues equals 59. Negro 59. Slave 59. This was the first image they put out of Darren Wilson after he killed Michael Brown, or as it was reported. In truth, Michael Brown wasn't killed because Michael Brown is a plastic doll. There's no such thing as Michael Brown. Completely made up fictional character. For all part of the very sick ongoing race war. If you want to see the real plastic Michael Brown body, it's in display in Chicago at an art museum on 47th Street. I have an older video on this. CNN did a story on it. The plastic doll that's supposed to look like Michael Brown that's laying down in the middle of yellow tape. The point of the exhibit is to show how the police left his body laying in the middle of the street for hours with yellow tape around it. If you watch the footage from that day, they take Michael Brown's plastic body and they don't put it in an ambulance. They put it in the back of a police SUV. Go watch the footage. It's all out there. It's definitive proof that Michael Brown is not a real person. It's a plastic doll. Dead bodies go in an ambulance, not in the back of police SUVs, after they sit in the middle of the street taped off for hours for no reason. I want to get back to the slide, so I remember to link it down in the description so you guys can read all this. But again, I have thousands of videos on this channel. I have 15,000 plus blog posts. I have so much evidence beyond what I'm showing you here in this video, but this is a good solid chunk. Earlier this year, it was announced that this film's coming out called 93 Days. This is about the Ebola breakout in Africa. 93 days. Remember, the whole Ebola thing was propaganda by the numbers. One of my favorite Ebola stories was this one right here from May 9th, 2015. 42 days of being Ebola-free in Liberia. They declared it on May 9th, after 42 days of no new Ebola cases, that Liberia was in the clear. May 9th, 5/9, 42 days. When you write out 5, it sums to 42. When you write out 9, it sums to 42. Also on this same day in history, Tiger Woods had his worst day as a golfer. The name Tiger equals 59. He had his worst career performance by the numbers. May 9th, 2015. This film, 93 Days, is about Ebola, stopping Ebola. Ebola, more fear propaganda, fear programming. The people who rule over us, it's always about fear, fear, fear. And that's a major part of the narratives of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. So many people look to their stories and they say, they were murdered because they spoke out. They stood for what's right. And that's why so many people in this nation, they're quiet and cowardly. They're afraid of being killed, consequences. Have no fear, truth seeker. More people got to speak out. No matter what Martin Luther King Jr. was, no matter what Malcolm X was, some of their speeches, some of their words, they're right on point, especially the Martin Luther King Jr. speech from April 4th, 1967. That speech from start to finish, I've never heard a better speech by anyone. You got to check out that speech. I'll be sure to link it in the description. 50 minutes, better than any movie you could ever watch. Also, down in the description, I'll link this. This is part of the chapter that I am writing in my book about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. You can read this. It's been up here since May 5th, 2016. A lot of information, things I might have forgotten to have covered in this video. But there it is. This is the Martin Luther King Jr. video for 2017. I've done something like this on the internet for, got to think about how old I am now. I've probably done something like this every year since I was 19. And I turned 33 last year, 2016. Turned 34 later this year. So I've been doing this for a long time, putting out information and knowledge about Martin Luther King Jr. To date, nothing I've ever put out has really made it anywhere. It's never gotten a big audience. It's never gotten a big attraction. But I think everyone in the nation deserves to see this video. I still want to make a video that gets 1 million views. So I can just go, okay, 1 million people saw that. The word is out there. So if you can help share this video, spread this knowledge, raise awareness, I will be forever grateful. Until next time, Truth Seeker.